They say performance has an expiration date, but what if they're wrong? No matter where you start, the goal's the same: to be better, stronger, wiser, bolder. We're here for the relentless, those that don't back down, don't compromise, and don't quit. This is training for Masters athletes by Masters athletes, with a community that holds you steady. So say goodbye to random workouts, because whether you're stepping into following a program for the first time or stepping onto the podium, your journey starts here.
All right, welcome back to Masters in Motion. Jason and I have a special guest tonight, one that needs no introduction, but I will give a quick introduction to. We're lucky to sit down with Mr. Dave Castro tonight. Been trying to chase him down and get his opinions on things for quite a while. So thank you for spending the time. We know your background. We know the origin of you being part of CrossFit from the beginning, not long after the introduction of the methodology. But what the community and the world truly knows you as is the man behind the games.
Yep.
Director of Sport. Still the correct title for you?
Yeah, sure. I'm not a title guy.
That counts. Okay. the one who pulls the strings there.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
You are coming off of, at this time of the recording, about 4 weeks after the 20th anniversary, which I know meant a lot to you, meant a lot to the community. But we have a couple of questions for you, certainly, as what you thought about it and what you were trying to accomplish. But then we also want to ask your opinion on a lot of things Masters related, because a lot of our listeners are just, the everyday athletes, the competitive ones who have aspirations to go to the games and or reach semifinals, and they care about the direction.
Yeah, so, for sure. Let's do that. Let's talk. Let's start with the games and my thoughts on that quickly.
Please.
And then let's dive into all the Masters stuff you want to ask. In regards to the games, I mean, as the 20th games, I wanted it to be something special. And early on, at some point, this decision to have 20 events to celebrate the 20th year was an anchor and something that I was going to build off of in programming this games. But what that did was it was by far, for me personally, mentally, professionally, on so many levels, the hardest CrossFit Games I'd ever programmed and or run. And one of the difficulties in it was, like, in all the other games, especially with 10 to 12 events, like that's a repeatable format that we've done from the beginning almost. Not from the beginning, but by the time we got to Carson, we were pretty much doing that number of events.
The modern era.
Yeah. But then to program 20, we had never done that before. And so to get it right and to like make it to where after each day they weren't completely destroyed, and by Sunday they couldn't straighten out their arms or their legs were completely blown up. That was we're wading into the unknown, and we are challenging ourselves in a way that we've never done. And so, like, after day one, especially when everyone was cramping, when all those athletes were cramping on the swim,
yep.
I was like, okay, the cramping, actually, it didn't bother me too much. I was like, it's an accumulation, because we didn't see it at all in testing. So I knew it wasn't the workout in isolation. I knew it was an accumulation of that day. But the cramping, it's like, okay, I know they have a big rest day. They'll be able to get through it. What I was more concerned about was going to be the soreness on Thursday. How sore were they coming out of Wednesday? And the good news is they weren't too sore. Even though let's back up. Yeah. And let's look at Wednesday, and just that big day. You look at the way we programmed that, the way everything was sequenced, and you kind of almost look at, by the final workout, it was, call it a recovery work. It wasn't recovery, but it was recovery in the swim and then burpees. Thought about including a load, a kettlebell or dumbbells or barbell, but it would have been a little abusive on the body at that point at the end of the day. So that's kind of one of the reasons why it ended up that way. And then throughout the rest of the weekend, just like monitoring, because Friday was also a really big day. And Saturday, still a strong day. And then Sunday ended with a 3-event day. And so
with one of them being back to back, right? Wasn't that
Sunday, was Saturday, not Sunday.
Saturday night.
Saturday night, yep. So Sunday, So
That's right.
and
That was
having so every day, every night at the games, I was like, oh, man, how are they going to feel the next day? How beat up are they going to be? And then by the point they got to event 19, which was the backward roll to support and forward roll to support, it was a big gamble putting something that technical
late.
that late.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was a big but for the sequencing of everything else involved, that's where it made the most sense in my mind, at least. And it was a big gamble because, again, what if they were so sore they couldn't straighten out their arms?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look
Not
at the
good.
rope climb volume, that was low. The pull-ups were at that point several days before, even though those were high volume. So it wasn't a completely reckless or with no thought given to it gamble, but it still was a gamble. So when they went into it and seeing how well people did at that, I was really pleasantly surprised. And then
Well, I was going to say, were you able to kind of take a pulse of some of the athletes that you know or from your team? Were people reaching
all
out
day,
and
every
saying,
day. Yeah. All day, every day
yeah,
at the
how do you
games.
feel?
I always ask, and that's pretty consistent through most games, but this one, it was definitely ramped up. Like Wednesday night, asking athletes how they feel in person, texting some on Thursday, how do you feel? Then at the briefs, asking. So yeah, I'm constantly doing that throughout the weekend.
Okay.
And then so through through the muscle up one, felt good about, or not muscle up, I'm sorry, backward roll to sport, forward roll to sport, really surprised at how well they did. And then by the end, once the competition was over, hearing from people and athletes saying, actually, you know what? Like it was a really hard games, but I'm not like completely destroyed. There was two ways that could have gone.
Mm-hmm.
If this is like crossing the threshold of being completely destroyed or being at the verge of being completely physically destroyed, them ending up on this side is a better outcome.
It's a
The
win.
fact that they were like, okay, it could have been a little more, it could have been more is better. I think it's better they said that than, oh man, that was just way too much.
Yeah,
So
I can't walk.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like by Sunday I was happy. I felt like we nailed it with the volume and we were able to have an appropriate dose across the 20 events. So to close out on the game thoughts, really stressful, really difficult. I think for me personally, the most challenging I've programmed, but really rewarding at the end that it worked out. I think it played out well and worked out. And here's the thing, I will say this. And the 19 years, 18 years I programmed before, 19 years of games events before, it's not like I was going into 20 completely inexperienced. Like have a lot of understanding of how to sequence, how to, again, ramp up intensity, where to include more complex, where to back off. And that's part of the knowledge base that I've established over the years doing this.
Did you start thinking about what you wanted to accomplish or how you wanted this to lay out any earlier, soon after last year's games than
I think
than a normal year?
Right after last year's games, I mean, I knew we were going back to the ranch for sure. Like once we were planning San Jose, I knew for a fact we'd come to the ranch. I knew we would do early the hopper workout. Then very early, I knew we'd bring back the hopper. Oh, and that was another stressful thing. That was another challenge.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy with how that played out. But that was another interesting challenge in the mix. And then knew we'd do a long run at the ranch. So there were some things that were planned way early, like right after the games. But then the rest, most of that starts to come together February, March, and then leading up to the games.
Okay. So it does. I think then, is it safe to assume that maybe the way that you and your team pulled this off, sequenced it correctly, didn't leave people completely broken, is that you think your probably biggest accomplishment? Year 20, we look to the next decade, but I'm sure glad we did it this way this year.
Yeah, it was one of great accomplishments in the history of the games, for sure, in my mind, especially around the programming and logistics and the scheduling and the timing. Because like a majority of this is like, it's easy to write workouts, but then it's hard to like make everything fall in place, have the time to do everything, get the heats through. I mean, even small things like, the run outside the venue with the squat clean workout being heats of 15. That's 4 heats total instead of 6 heats total. And there's just like little planning things like that. And the amount it saves you for a longer workout like that. And so like when you create the programming, then there's all the logistics of putting it in play. 4 people. No, how many people? 4 or 5 people. No, 5. 5 people throwing during the throw instead of at first when we planned it was going to be 3 people throwing because we didn't know left and right how much they were going to drift left or right. The throw too. I mean, that's another one. Complete gamble. So that in terms of like that could have been a huge dud. I think some people do think it was a dud. I don't think it was a dud. I loved it. I thought it played out well. For the people who do think it was a dud, I don't care because I mean, like it worked out for what I was trying to accomplish. And here's the point: that was nice filler when you're trying to play 20 events. What I mean by filler is like it was a low impact event. That's why I meant you reminded me that the athlete said what you do 1,000 times. I was talking about the throw. The other thing I thought about putting there too was a jump, like a standing max. Yeah, so
you've done that before, though.
We have done that.
You wanted?
Yeah. So jumping, we were gonna do jumping, and then there was a point where I was like, I almost pulled out the backward roll to support forward roll to put a jump in. I'm really glad I didn't because that turned out to be one of the most exciting events of the weekend. So yeah, I thought about a jump, but anyways, backward rolls are the throw and the way we laid it out. So again, any one of these things are easy to program, but then how it's applied, how you do it, that takes a lot of time and logistics and effort.
Any pulling back of the strings from the throw, pulling back to the time you guys did the med ball on the GHD throw?
A little.
Way back? I mean, like you've thrown, you weren't throwing a softball this year. Thank goodness we didn't throw softballs.
No, but the throw was like a toss back to both of those events, to the softball and to the GHD throw that we did.
Med ball.
Yeah, I think this was like I've said this about some of the other events, but I'll say this about the throw. What I really like about the throw is it's a standard that you and I could walk out to our CrossFit gym and we could do that and we could measure up and we can compare against everybody. And so the fact that it's a measurable test that the community can do for an explosive movement, 3 different directions, I think is cool. And I like having programming like that where there's a lot of things that people can do at home. Not all, obviously.
No.
But there's a lot of things. And this year, there's a lot of things we as fans or we as enthusiasts or we as CrossFitters can do at home that is cool.
I think you mentioned that in your Wednesday recap.
Yeah.
The way you laid the day out, maybe loading for 2007 might be different for, different age groups and things like that. But everybody can run. Everybody could swim.
Yep.
Everybody could do the total.
Yeah.
So, we're waiting for Friday and Saturday, or no, Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday. I got to finish those.
Those recaps. So, but I know it gets more complex, it gets more technical, and that's what you're trying to do. So not just this year being the 20th year, but was there something, I've always wanted to ask this question. What do you think was the most successful or event that you put together that played out as well as you had expected it to, or that you were as pleased from a programming standpoint, and then the story it told out there on the field? Like if you had to say Carson on, I know that's a lot. That's a lot of
Carson on. Jeez, man, that one's tough.
I know. Okay, all right, Madison.
Okay, Madison, in Carson, I'll say I like the muscle up biathlon. I think that one worked out well, great.
Okay, remember that?
Yeah, that because that was a wild one, and what we were trying to do there with the unbroken muscle ups was bold. And then
at that
time for sure. And then the penalty lap, and that was totally influenced by modern rifle biathlon by the Olympic event. And I think that was even the year of the Winter Olympics, and that's part of the reason why we included it. I think some of the workouts, like the battlefield that we did in Madison, was really cool. The obstacle course stuff. I'll say this, and this is the first place I've said this. I really wanted to do an obstacle course at the games this year. And I reached out to a few different local police departments that I know. And there's an academy in the Bay Area, a police academy that had an obstacle course. And I really considered that. But the problem was in like no traffic San Jose driving, it's 45 minutes. It's up near where Craig Howard's gym is, Diablo. So with all the movement we had going on to different offsites and different venues, I couldn't justify putting that in. But that was the little thing I was trying hard for. Thought about building one at the ranch, but that wasn't going to be able to happen. Yeah.
Time frame. Yeah. No,
exactly. No. So, but an obstacle course. The obstacle courses we've done before, I really like. This one, or this year, I did want to have one, but wasn't able to pull it off.
Well, the first one was at Pendleton, right?
Pendleton,
so
yeah.
you didn't have to build that. You had to build
Yeah, exactly.
Madison's, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hear this, and from a programming perspective, want to look back and think, you accomplished what you did. I'm assuming you already have thoughts of what next year. Do we know where? You guys have not made an announcement of where it'll even be next year,
We have some very targeted locations.
Okay, all right. And that's yes. For the individuals and teams. We know we're the Masters community. I'm sure we're going to be thinking about that as well. At least we know the dates for the Open.
Say that last part again.
At least we know the dates for the Open.
Yeah,
that's been released.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
we're going there.
Progress.
I think from a Masters perspective, one thing Jason and I always talk about is, if we don't like something, just wait a year and it'll change. I mean, we're having. I know be prepared for the unknown and unknowable, but the consistency, that's all we're asking for, is consistency in scheduling, consistency in qualification process, and then the ultimate experience for Masters. But glad you said that about the obstacle course. Maybe you might be able to do that again this year. But, looking at Masters, I know a few years ago we made the decision, HQ made the decision to separate and said adaptives, you go your direction, teenagers, you go your direction, and age groups or Masters go to your direction. Is it something how does HQ feel about that, if you're at liberty to say, or is it something that will be ever brought back into the fold with new leadership at HQ? Or is this something that's often being discussed?
One of the reasons why we split is the functionality of fundamentally finding venues that are large enough to host all of them. And when we had them all, our requirements to the footprint needed to pull everything off in one location is incredible. And it rules out so many venues. Texas, it probably, no, that year it couldn't because all those bays, they have all these bays that could have hosted, but they were all reserved. And the only thing we had was the vendor village. So Texas, it couldn't have worked. Albany for sure could not have worked.
Yeah, smaller, right?
Yep. San Jose, it could not have worked unless we did what we did with bringing in the convention center. But even that was very disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah. Disconnected.
And so
I felt a little bit that way.
Part of the reason for doing that was the ability to move the CrossFit Games and have them have options. Because again, especially if you consider taking them overseas, again, that footprint becomes really difficult to have everyone there. And then also just the management and the running and the facilitating of all those events. It's a massive lift on our team, and it makes the week really large for those running everything. And then you combine that with there were people and there are people, and we saw it with Legends that are running events, and they're running good events, and they're interested in doing and in being the people who are hosting the CrossFit Games. And so we took some time and looked into it and decided, hey, we actually think it could be better for the athletes and better for us logistically and able to grow and take it to different places if we separate. Do I think we'll ever bring them back all together? It's going to be hard in the near term, that's for sure. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think if the right venue and location presented itself, bringing them back to, and let me say this, bringing them back to where we're running it, probably highly unlikely.
Okay. All right.
Especially now because there's all these event organizers that have so much experience doing it.
It's still a collaboration, though. I mean, there's still,
and it's still a collaboration. We're still working.
See, that's what we need to feel like we have HQ looking over or working with the groups that are in charge for numbers of events, numbers of days that you're allowed to participate, things like that. There's decent.
Yeah. So we work together with the events, and we communicate and we give feedback, and we don't run it for them or we don't put our fist down, but we do say, hey, this is what we recommend. Even some of the feedback the Cat gave me in terms of the athlete profile. A few years ago, we told them they needed to qualify less athletes to the actual games. And I know that's super controversial, but here's why. When you have 8 divisions or 9 divisions of 40 people, the days and the burden and the demand on volunteers, on the event organizers, on spectators, on everyone is just so enormous. So when you take that same profile and reduce it to maybe 20 for some of the older divisions, and then maybe 30, and then the top divisions have 40, you reduce the number of heat sizes, which keeps people fresh, which keeps people focused. And I actually think the more athletes in some of these competitions you have actually becomes a potential issue that could happen if people are just becoming so run down that they aren't on their A
used
game.
to it.
Yeah.
Well,
so stuff like that. We're very like, hey, we want you to have less athletes that qualify because, and at the games too, part of the concept there is it is still participatory, but it's less about the participatory because it's about, having the best athletes there to kind of qualify or to compete to be the fittest alive in their age group.
I will say that I came from 1 year of a field of 10. And we happened to have a number of injuries. And by the third day, there were 6 of us left standing. I mean, and so then there's no point separation or anything like that. You're looking around going, oh my gosh, you're still standing. Okay, good. Let's go out there and have some fun. And so I think and what athletes worry about is you get too small of a field. You want to land on that right number. So that number is.
The number thing is interesting too, because you look at some of the older divisions, like have a few thousand people in a total. And we see this, we see this with the youth, with the teenage divisions. The teenage divisions have like
not many,
1,500, 2,000 people. And so people are like, we need 40 or 50 of them qualifying to the games. And as a percentage, when you look at like the 35 to 39, there's like 30,000 or 50,000. I forget what the open number starts at, and whittles down to, 40 or 50. When you look at the open, almost 70, 80,000 in just the open divisions or the main division that whittle down to the 30 or 40. And so then when you look at the maybe even when you hit 60, 55, maybe, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but when you start getting into those later divisions, the numbers drop off significantly. And so the percentage of people qualifying are like a very high percentage of those competing. So that's one of the reasons why the numbers drop too.
Understand that. I mean, I just talking with Bob a little bit, in some testing this year. Maybe one of my comments were, maybe that's not long enough. And he said, look, if you don't understand, if you take a 6-minute cap and you double it to 12 minutes, how much longer does that take to get all the heats through on a given day? And then you lose the ability to do something else later in the afternoon. And you can't expect people to be still competing at 8 o'clock at night. So
half of programming for any of these events is logistics, and what he's talking about there is the logistics of it. And the Masters, it's really challenging because there's so many divisions and there's so many different scales and all these groups where there's adaptive. That's really challenging, obviously, but where there's a large number of people in different categories, it's not easy to pull off.
Thinking through, how you crown the fittest on our earth, what do you, taking it away from the programming aspect, but let me have your thoughts on how you view Masters athletes, 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, or even some of those in the 70-year-old division as fittest on earth. What is, most way to describe this? What are you proud of from the methodology that shows these older folks can do things that their peers and contemporaries generally are not?
Yeah.
And they're doing it at a high level. I mean, is that something
you
as a team look back?
Yeah, it's incredibly inspiring to me as an individual, but also to the community. And it's seeing what athletes can do when following the methodology and following it smartly into these advanced ages is incredibly impressive. And it's beautiful to see. And, it's funny. I went over to the event and there was some age group athletes, some Masters athletes, much older than I was. And I saw some of them and I'm like, man, I want to look like that when I'm that age. And then I was like, actually, I've never looked like that. So that's how good you look. Like, that's how good some of these people look. Like, even right now, I don't look like that. I don't know why I want to look like that when I'm that age. I've never even been able to look like that. But the effort they put into it and the time they put into it and the results they get from it and the And the joy they all have in it and the journey and doing it, it is incredibly motivating for the average person like myself and the community to see. So I think the masters and the age groups is a beautiful thing for us and for the community. And the reality is too, and it's not, this is hard for people to hear, but it's also not getting the numbers and not going to draw ever like the individuals.
The eyeballs, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
my counter to that, though, is it's still behind the scenes. It's part of the financial engine. I mean, we all know how much percentage of total open registrations or even quarterfinals are maybe in the age groups. So
Absolutely.
it's just not getting the clicks. It's not getting, nobody's turning into to Flow Elite
And
on a
so
weekend
no,
to watch.
like for the
Master.
most part, that statement's true. It's like the team competition at the games. Even
Mhm.
when Rich Froning and some of the other big athletes were on teams, when you went to the venue during teams was empty. Not completely empty, but largely most people went out to Vendor Village or whatever. And so the amount of eyeballs and viewership that this aspect gets is much lower than the individual side, which then means the big sponsors are less willing to spend as much on that area. But in the open, at this point, last couple of years, over 50% that we like to, or the statement is made, over 50% of registration is age group now. The truth, though, is this is the other piece of that.
That's fine.
A large majority of that is 35 to 39. So when you look at 35 to 39 and under 35, that's probably it. Not probably. It is. It really skews.
Becomes over 50%.
Way over 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the 35 to 39 is, and then into the 40 to 44, that whole chunk of the age group chunk is massive. And then there is a big drop off. I want to say it happens at 55. Maybe it happens at 50.
Yeah, but we see it. Far fewer numbers.
Yeah, so that's not diminishing anything that's happening. I'm in the age groups. I think it's amazing, but it's more of a statement of fact that, especially when it comes to viewership and sponsorship dollars, the eyeballs outside of those communities, their family members, is harder to transcend or to get to.
Yeah, friends and family. Want to be respectful of your time here. I just want to ask one last question. If you had to look into the future and say 5 years from now, so what are we, 2031, what would you envision the individual games to be looking like, and what would you envision, we'll specifically ask, Masters?
Okay, so at the individual games, I'd like to see them get back to this glory that we had several years ago of just scope and size and prize purse and venues being full and champions that are celebrated, CrossFit being celebrated, the affiliates being celebrated, the whole thing, the whole engine just marching in a unified direction. And the sport is the competition, the CrossFit Games are essentially a celebration of that on the individual side. On the master side, I'd love to see it continue to grow. I'd love to see the event get larger. I'd love to see people running events that you guys are really proud of. And I think running events where the age group athletes and the masters athletes feel like they're having an event that's the equivalent of the CrossFit Games.
It's special. Yeah.
To a certain degree, right? It's never going to be, at this point, it's never going to be the CrossFit Games, but something very similar, or the experience that makes them feel special. I'd love to see that happen. And also, I do think it would be cool. I think the opportunities and the moments where we can bring them together, like San Jose. So even though they weren't in the same venue, the fact that they were in the same town, about a mile apart, and that we were even able to include them in the opening ceremonies,
right,
that was really cool. I would love to see us get to more opportunities with both events where we can do them, if not in the same city, or I'm sorry, not in the same city, in the same venue. That'd be a place I'd like to get it to. And finally, with the age group, just having them continually pushing the limits of what they're capable of, and inspiring and influencing a younger generation to continue to train and live in a healthy way, and motivate people in their gyms, motivate people in their communities, motivate people in society to pursue fitness and a healthy lifestyle through CrossFit. That's ultimately what I think would be a great place to see it accomplished.
5 years, 2031. Let's
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah,
I
no problem.
appreciate talking to you. We will try and chase you down again. Love to have you on, ask you some more questions. But for right now, greatly appreciate it and have a great evening.
Thanks a lot, Rick. Appreciate the time.
This episode is powered by Thirdzy, your go-to for game-changing sleep recovery. Imagine hitting your workouts harder and waking up feeling unstoppable. That's what Thirdzy's PM Recovery Collagen does for me. It's like pre-workout, but for your sleep, fueling your body's active recovery processes without any melatonin or sedatives. Just one scoop before bed supports deeper, more restorative sleep so you can crush your fitness goals. Ready to experience the best rest and recovery? Visit Thirdzy.com and transform your nights into recovery power hours. Thirdzy, because sleep is the ultimate recovery tool. That's THIRDZY.com. Save 20% with code JASONZZZ. Let's get into the show. Thanks for tuning in to the Masters in Motion podcast. We'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our Masters community. Until next time, get bolder, not older.